I'm going to give you a little bit more information about what exactly is an informational interview, how to approach it, and some tips that I have so that way you actually get to where you need to go. So now when you actually do have your meeting, what do you exactly do? So first, you always want to start a conversation and do an introduction. You don't actually want to go straight into the guts, and you always want to have a conversation, really learn about them, because again, you're trying to build a relationship and also trying to learn about them on a genuine way. You don't want to make it seem like you're using them or also just asking questions, and that's literally all it. You want to make sure that you're trying to see like, oh, what are you doing for this weekend? Oh, cool, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, I just had dinner. Cool. Look at my cats. I've actually had a few times when I did bring up my cats, but they liked it, so it doesn't matter. So the first thing is, there's so many people out there who just said, oh, thank you for your time, I would really appreciate it. And actually this goes a long way, because if you don't ask about it, it's just like, do you not even value my time? Do you know how busy I am? Do you not even know, like, maybe if I'm not even busy, but at least like knowing that you value my time is really well appreciated. And then the other thing is, make sure to introduce yourself. It's a little bit awkward if maybe the person is like, hey, I don't know much about you, can you introduce yourself? You should be more of introducing yourself and really trying to kind of start the conversation going. That way we have some kind of context. And again, try to actually use an introduction that you can't necessarily find from anywhere else. So if I were to go on your LinkedIn and I know about you, then you want to go a little bit more about like, why are you reaching out as well? You want to make the intentions clear. So in this case, it's also really key to also have an agenda prepared. And I'm not saying to send the agenda ahead of time. I'm saying to actually mention to them what you want to discuss in this call, because there's so many times I've had, hey, I'm interested in learning about technology consulting. Can we have a call? And I'm like, well, I kind of need to know what you want to talk about, because there's so many things out there. And I want to know, like, are you in technology consulting? Are you interested in it? So there's so many things that you should go about in terms of the agenda. So if you do just ask random questions, it's not necessarily going to be the most fruitful for you. So you need to kind of give them your perspective in terms of what background you're going for. Maybe you are an experienced hire and you want to go into technology consulting, and you're like, okay, well, I want to pivot my career through. So that way when I actually have my conversation with you, I can actually kind of cater my answers to you, so that way it's not just a generic answer. Again, we're building a relationship, and this way we're also learning about you. So if you are maybe like a student and you're interested in an internship, it's going to be a completely different conversation than if I'm going to talk to you about a full-time job. So there's so many different things that your introduction will really help me. And when it comes to the questions, make sure you come prepared with questions. Too many times I have people that are literally like, if we're doing a video call, they're just looking to the side because they're like, oh, I'm trying to think of a question and I don't have anything. Or they have so many questions, which is amazing, but then a lot of these questions, you can Google it. So I'm like, you need to be prepared with good questions that are specific to the person you're talking to. If there are any broad questions that you want to learn more about, you can talk about like something like, okay, what is technology consulting? And then that seems like super broad, right? But you can also twist it in a way like, oh, Christine, what is technology consulting to you? Like, how would you define it? What's your experience? That way it's a lot more personalized, and you can actually definitely get a better answer than like, why didn't you Google it? Again, you want to make sure that you value their time. So you want to make sure that you've done your research, you've asked your questions beforehand, and then now you're actually trying to figure out what their particular perspective and experience is. So then the next one is, I get like a few people that don't do this but should be doing this, is that make sure to ask follow-up questions and make comments on it. If you just kind of do like a Q&A rapid fire, it's just like, well, I don't know anything about you. All I know is just I'm answering these questions for you. I don't even know if they're helpful for you, if you even think it's interesting. So that way I can bring out even more interesting experiences for you that you can relate to. So it's really good to just have a comment here and there, ask a follow-up question. If, for example, something that someone said was interesting and you want to kind of dive deeper into it, again, it's a conversation, okay? It's not necessarily just here's all the questions and answers, because then that can easily be done through an email. If it's done through a call, you definitely want to make sure that you've asked all your questions, but then ask follow-up questions on anything that you find interesting, because that's when you're diving deeper, and that's also something that you can't get anywhere else. If you get to dive deeper on like, oh, what is your like worst horror story with a client? You can't get that in an email that well. And then maybe you want to ask like, oh, what did the client do about that, as like a follow-up question, it's more engaging because you're kind of providing more to the story, you're getting a little bit deeper, and then you're getting into that juice that everyone wants. So then there's last two things is that make sure to have a call of action after your call or your meeting or anything like that. Make sure to have a call of action of like, do you mind if you look over my resume and give me some feedback, or maybe like, can you introduce me to someone that knows about this, or do you have like anyone that you know about that would help me out for this? But do not ask at the first meeting, can you refer me, or can you send my resume to HR? You want to make sure to build a relationship before you even get to that point, because like they don't know anything about you or much about you to even refer you in the first time. So you want to make sure to build that relationship, and then maybe have another follow-up call, talk about kind of like things that you may have like digested from our first call, and then just kind of learn about it and say like maybe you had some follow-up questions, maybe you've had other conversations with other people, and then now more questions come up. So you really want to really dig deep in there, and in this way you can have a better relationship with them, and the person you're talking to even knows that you know what to do, what to expect in the job. Lastly, a thank you message. So many people do not do this. I'm like surprised actually. I thought it was like kind of a given, and I think actually a lot of people do thank you emails when it comes to job interviews, but they forget about the informational interviews. Do a thank you message. It does not need to be an email. It could be an email, or you could do a Facebook message or a LinkedIn message. Thank them for their time. Don't necessarily just like after the call is done, that's it. Never again. Don't do that. You always want to make sure that they remember you, and then they also know that like, oh, she was that person that I had this call with, blah blah blah. You always want to make sure that there's a positive association to you, and you always want to thank them for their time as well. Even if you mentioned it in the actual call, make sure to do it again, because then it really shows that you really value their time. So again, this is not the first time. Try to make a relationship, so like if it needs to be, then you could do a second or a third call. You'll be surprised how many people actually value the fact that you followed up, because it just means that you're making an effort to hold a relationship and not just a one-time deal to kind of get all your answers out of the way. The other way, it could just be more about like learning about you as a friend. I've actually had a lot of calls of these where we literally talked about like, oh, how was the summer internship? How is it with COVID-19? What did you do in quarantine? Half of the things were not even relating to technology consulting, and this is the best relationship you can have, where I know you as a person, I know you as a professional. And this is the best way, because then like I can really cheer you on instead of like, oh cool, I don't know much about you, but I'm gonna cheer you on, cool. But if you really know you as a person, that's definitely the best way through, because I know who you are. I can vouch for you, even if there's like any hesitation from HR from any position, I can still vouch for you. So you really want to build that relationship. It really goes a long way. Well, sometimes if you want to make things happen, you want to also do these informational interviews, kind of also do your research before you even get into the interview. Can definitely give you a head start, because now you know, oh, I spoke to Christine about Accenture and I learned about this and that. All of a sudden you impress the interviewer because you actually went out of your way to learn about technology consulting or Accenture when it comes to interviews, or when it comes to like anything about the company that like is not online, because this way you actually know what you're expecting, and then now they're gonna be like impressed that like, I think you would be a good fit for the job because you actually know what you're getting yourself into. So with that said, thank you so much, and if you have any other questions about these networking tips, I'm gonna have more general like networking event or career fair kind of networking tips, but for this particular video I wanted to focus on informational interviews, because I think these are really key when it comes to networking, but also I think it's super doable right now when you could just like pick up a phone call and do it right now. So with that said, thank you so much. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Well, if you like this video, it definitely helps me out, because it really shows me that what I'm doing right now is worth my time and that I should keep on going. So thank you so much, and make sure to subscribe. By the way, you guys have to check out my earrings. Like, look, this is so cute. If you guys haven't noticed, it's a little cat. It's so cute. Fits into my brand, doesn't it, huh?